Hello and welcome to Reading for the Love of It presents. My name is Erica Townsend and I am the Executive Administrator with the EYS Reading Association and the conference organizer with Reading for the Love of It. Today we are joined by Canadian author Sylvia Gunnery. Please note that you are joining us in listen-only mode, which means we cannot see or hear you, but you should have no difficulty watching and listening to the presentation. Sylvia Gunnery has published over 25 books for teens and children, as well as professional resources for teachers of writing. An educator with 32 years of experience at the secondary level, she is a recipient of a Prime Minister's Teaching Award and a Nova Scotia Hilroy Fellowship. She has presented at conferences, libraries, and schools across Canada and leads online and in-person writing workshops for adults and youth. In the past few weeks, Sylvia is especially excited to finally be back with students in classrooms as COVID-19 restrictions were gradually lifted. She lives in Crescent Beach on the south shore of Nova Scotia, where she's working on a YA collection of linked stories, What I Know About Next. I'm happy to introduce you to Sylvia Gunnery.
Thank you, Erica, for that introduction. It'll be good to see you next February and everybody else, Reading for the Love of It. We've been missing it, that's for sure. Today I want to talk about the idea that really comes every time I go to visit a school. Students will ask, where do you get your ideas? And there is a simple answer, but I'll make it complicated. Basically, we get our ideas from ourselves, from what we're wondering about, worried about, observing, thinking about, preoccupied with, stuff that we notice. And the fact that we notice it, of course, is because it's something that interests us, So each person notices, worries about, is preoccupied by something very different. And that's where the voice of the writer comes in. Let me give you a couple of examples. So first, I'll use road signs that say west. This book is a story of three sisters who take a trip across Canada. I have a sister. We did take a trip across Canada, but I didn't write our story. We were with a German Shepherd dog. I instead have three sisters, just to mix it up a bit. And none of the characters are me or my sister, but the idea of a road trip occurred to me, I'm sure, out of that experience. And before I wrote road signs, I had been up in Red Rock, doing some school visits north of Thunder Bay. And north of Red Rock again is Lake Helen Reserve. And so at the high school, I met a young person whose name is Bear. And when I was writing this book and the sisters were going across the top of Lake Superior, it occurred to me that someone was hitchhiking. And as we got closer to them, it occurred to me it was Bear. And it doesn't surprise me that I was still thinking of this young man because he had impressed me. He had been chatting at lunchtime, he was in a writing workshop, and he stayed afterward to talk. He didn't write very much, and he just talked about that with me, and so it was interesting. Let me read to you so you can meet Bear. Now, I didn't know him very well, so I had to imagine that he would do these things. Based on my impression of him, then I could take that idea and use it. In this scene, he has not yet met the three sisters. He's going to meet them later that evening. They're going to see him hitchhiking. A dog is tied to the dumpster. A small beagle sitting up expectantly, watching everyone cross in front of the alley. Beside the dog is a plastic bowl of water and a box of dog treats, ripped open and mostly eaten. When Bear walks into the alley, the dog stands, wagging its tail. He bends down and scratches its ears. Waiting for someone, dog? Someone gone in the pub for a beer, huh? The dog leans into Bear's large fingers. A note wrapped with string is on its collar. He unwraps the string and the note falls into his hands. My name is Jake. I'm a good dog. Please adopt me. The note is carefully printed in large angled letters that to Bear look like a man's. not someone his own age, definitely not a child's. He feels the water in the bowl warm. He dumps it and goes into the pub. There's a dog tied to the dumpster out there. Can I get him some water? Been there all day, said the guy behind the bar. He fills the bowl and passes it back. Bear watches the dog lap up the water. He's a clean dog, brown and white with a black patch like a saddle across his back. His nylon collar is frayed, but the blue leash looks new. Need a walk? As soon as the leash is untied from the dumpster, the dog trots quickly out of the alley. He turns right and keeps on going. A couple of blocks away, he turns right again. They arrive at an apartment building, 3 stories with bare patches of dried mud where a lawn is supposed to be. A couple of kids' bikes are tilted on their sides near the cement steps at the entrance. The dog starts up the steps. This home? Bear slides his backpack off and sits down. He pats the dog's head. It isn't long before 2 kids come out. Hey, says one of them. Jake. Then he looks at Bear, immediately suspicious. What are you doing with Jake? I found him. He brought me here. Mike moved out, says the other kid. This Mike's dog? Yeah. Guess he doesn't want his dog no more. Bear stands up, puts on his backpack, and tugs on the leash. The dog resists. Bear kneels down, takes the dog's small face in his hands and looks into its dark eyes. Mike's gone, he says. The dog licks drool off its mouth and glances nervously sideways. Nothing here for you no more. He stands up and gives a firm tug on the leash. The dog trails along behind, looking back. So this is my character of Bear, although I am picturing the actual person. So the idea kind of weaves in behind what I have experienced, something that interests me, dogs, a person who would care for a dog, and then it can weave into the story. Let me give you another example. In this example, I actually took it almost exactly from the trip my sister and I took to across the West, and we were in Jasper. And, well, I'm not going to say anything because I'll just give it away. But in this page and a half, the 3 sisters are in the tent, not my sister and our German Shepherd dog, and this occurs in the night. Something bumps against the picnic table. The candle jar falls over and rolls off without breaking. Megan opens her eyes. It's so dark, it's like she hasn't opened them at all. Hannah, stay very, very still. Hannah's voice is barely a whisper. Don't make a sound. Hannah doesn't have to tell her. She knows what it is. Her legs start to tremble uncontrollably. Shuffling sounds move away from the picnic table and come toward the tent. A low snuff, snuff. Megan doesn't breathe, tries to quiet the trembling. Her heart is pounding frantically. How can Claire still be asleep? Snuff, snuff, low on the ground, a small moan like a question. It's right there on the other side of the tent, right there. Only thin fabric between them, an eternity of silence. Can she smell its rank breath? It moves toward the front of the tent, stops, then pads slowly, slowly away. A twig cracks in the underbrush. Rustling sounds go further and further into the woods until they can't be heard anymore. It's gone, says Hannah, still whispering. It might come back. I think it'll just keep going. She doesn't say until it finds food. I can't stop shaking. Take a couple of deep breaths. Megan gulps in air. I was so scared. You were amazing, Megan. Really, really, really amazing. In that scene, I was Megan. And, it's one thing to write on the page, her legs trembled uncontrollably, but when it's your legs and they're true, it seems such a small thing to write, trembling uncontrollably, when really it was just fear, panic, terror. And right there, and you could hear it just right there with just the tent, not even as wide as this book. So sometimes the idea is you just take an experience you had, just fit it right in. Take out your sister, take out yourself, take out the German Shepherd dog, put other people in the tent and keep the bear. I've written a series of basketball books, and Out of Bounds and Personal Best and Game Face. And Game Face is the third in the series. And this is sort of an interesting thing because I love basketball, so I'm interested in basketball. And the editor at Lorimer called me up saying, we'd like you to do a sports series for us. And I said, oh, I could do basketball. So when I was writing this third book in the series, I was halfway through, and not even half, and I was stopped. And usually what I do when I'm stopped is I go for a little bit, but that's just torture. So I take a break, go read a book, go for a walk. And I was walking on a beach not far from here, Rissers Park. It was winter. I was all dressed up very warmly. Nobody else on the beach on that cold day. And as I was walking along the beach, I find this twine. Now it's buried in the sand, like up to about here. And so I dug down, and when I brought it up, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking exactly what Jay would think if he picked this up. And so I came home and I wrote basically this scene. I'll just read you a paragraph or so from it. So Jay has gone down to a wharf where they're getting ready for lobster season. I picture a wharf not very far from my house here on the south coast of Nova Scotia. And his grandfather's there. And so Jay has gone down with his little kid brother who speaks first. His kid brother's 5. Jay's about 14. Jay's got something super, super big to tell, Gramp, said Sam. Oh, don't exaggerate, Sam. It's no big deal. They all look at Jay, waiting. It's just about being captain for our basketball team. They voted and Jay won captain. If Sam had had a megaphone, his cheering couldn't have been louder. Now that's awful good news, said Gramps. Captain, well. Very important job, just like being captain of one of these boats. A lot of responsibility. Jay looked down at the weathered boards of the wharf. Responsibility wasn't something he needed to be reminded about. Since yesterday's vote, that word kept floating up into his mind and clouding him with doubts. I'll just skip a little bit. Jay picked up a short piece of braided twine, bright turquoise and frayed at the end. He spun it between his thumb and finger, watching the unraveled strands whirl. Didn't take too much imagination to see how the chunk of twine was like a warning to him as team captain. If he wasn't careful, the team could unravel and things would just spin out of control. Once I had that, I realized he needed to take control, and I got out of the writer's block and I could keep on going. So sometimes an idea just comes from a walk on the beach or a walk somewhere, and an object you find, something you see. This next and last example I'm going to give you is an odd one for me because it has to do with the work I'm doing right now, a series of YA-linked short stories, which I call What I Know About Next. And I've been working on this quite a bit, about 2 years, a little more. And during the COVID time, when we've all been so separated, I found it really hard to be creative and to put my mind into a story in my imagination, but I'm slowly going along with it, moving forward. So I had in my mind this character, Taylor. She's in grade 10, nice, creative person. She likes to go shopping at secondhand shops. She finds clothing and then she just redesigns them into her own image of what she'd like it to be. And so she does that a lot. And last February on the news and in newspapers came this story. And I'll just read the headline to you, but this is a copy of the newspaper story from Victoria, BC. And the headline reads, BC teen in turtleneck, lace-edge dress, sent home from school for inappropriate outfit. Some of you may remember that. We often talk about dress code or school uniforms and what's appropriate or what isn't. And in this particular case with this teenager, Her dad was very vocal about it on Facebook and in the media. And when I looked at the young girl, I just said, there's Taylor. That's exactly what she looks like. You know, dark hair, you know, tall. And she would have worn that dress. She would have recreated something to make that dress. So it stayed in my mind for a while, and then I thought, I have to write that story. So it's not in the book yet. But I didn't want the story to have somebody else take control. For Taylor, I wanted her to take control. I'm not going to read you the whole story, but I'll just read how I set it up. And you'll recognize that I'm borrowing very heavily from the image of the young person in the article and from that situation. So this is how the story begins. Taylor is at the dining room table altering a second-hand silk dress she found at Frenchie's. Basic black. She had reached into an overfilled bin and felt something light and luxurious. Even before she pulled it out, she knew she'd buy whatever it was. She's already taken in the sides and shortened the spaghetti straps to create a gentle scoop in the front. Now she's adding a wide border of black lace along the bottom and neckline, stitching by hand so the silk won't bunch up. She turns the dress right side out. Done. In her room, she stands at the mirror and makes a few sideways turns, checking the outfit. Perfect. When she moves, the dress softly shimmers. She loves the feel of silk and lace against her skin, and the way the hemline lightly touches the backs of her legs. She puts one hand on her hip and gives a brooding glance toward the mirror. In the summer, she'll wear this dress. Maybe some hot night when everybody's out walking around like it's the middle of the day. Then she thinks, why not? She'll wear it to school tomorrow, though she'll need her white turtleneck and black tights under it. It's February, not July. So we skip to the next morning. The t-shirt fits smoothly over her hips, so there's no annoying ridge showing through. And the black lace neckline really stands out against the white. She's pleased with this stylistic crossover between all-night party and serious school. A definite look. Kayla and Logan have to see this right now. She takes a picture of her image in the mirror, positioning the phone so it covers her face, and the focus is on the dress, straight and slim down to her knees. She gives a thumbs up. Click. I'm just going to skip to when she goes to the office. The secretary asks her to wait to get a late slip because she's been late. And I just put this sentence in to give a sense of how this kind of thing can begin when someone sees someone who they think is not dressed appropriately. The secretary looks up from her computer. A quick shadow moves across her face. I need a late slip, please. Mr. Parsons will be back in a moment. Her glance slides down over the black dress and up again. I mean, you know, we try our best in schools, principals, secretaries, everybody. But, you know, sometimes the opinions don't match what the students think, and that's the kind of situation really that happened in BC. So there are some examples of where I get my stories from, and you can see they're just deeply connected to what I'd be thinking about and what I'd be wondering about. And so this connects back into our classrooms where, you know, if we said to everyone, you know, write about a guy finding a dog tied up to a dumpster, or write about someone who made a dress and wore it to school and it wasn't appropriate, or, you know, write about a bear at a tent. Well, those stories may connect with some people, but they may not. Because where do we get our ideas? We get them from here. That's part of our writer's voice. See you at Reading for the Love of It next year, I hope. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. We really appreciate hearing about your writing process, and hopefully it can be of assistance to an avid writer out there or help someone get started. If you'd like to revisit this webinar again, just go to the YouTube channel link on our website. There you can also find links to a number of other webinars that we have hosted over the past year and a half. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you continue reading for the love of it. Bye for now.